Our goal of these several, as I say, 7 webinars has been to provide you and others in the field with insight and tools to really help you advance your work with community college baccalaureate degrees and baccalaureate attainment for community college students, which really is the core mission of the Community College Baccalaureate Association. Today we have really a great panel, a lot of folks who've been doing this work, leading this work, and really championing the Community College Baccalaureate in their own home communities and in their colleges. My name is Debra Bragg. I am filling in today for our dear colleague, Angela Kersenbrock, who I'll introduce in a minute, but we're glad she's here with us, but not quite feeling up to the moderator role. As I say, I'm Debra Bragg. I am actually a CCBA board member and a longtime researcher of community college baccalaureate degrees. I'm the president of a consulting firm called Bragg Associates, and have been partnering with CCBA this last year with my colleague Tim Harmon, who I will also introduce here in a moment. But we're very excited to share with you a couple of pretty big projects that have been happening under the leadership of CCBA this last year. And also share with you a little bit about where we think we might be going with more of this work in the future. So really delighted to be here and welcome you and thank you for coming. I'm going to now introduce my colleague, Tim Harmon. Some of you know Tim. Tim has been working for the last really 2 or 3 years on the Community College Baccalaureate work and has had a partnership with CCBA as well. Tim is the president of Workforce Enterprise Services, and he's located here in Springfield, Illinois. Tim has done a lot of work over the years in pathway program development, evaluation, and policy work, and he has been really supporting and leading some of this work, including some of the work you're going to hear about later today in Illinois around supply and demand. So Tim, I don't know if you want to say hello, that'd be great.
Hi, Deborah, thanks for your introduction. You're very kind as always, and it's a big privilege, as I've said many times before, to have the collaboration that we've enjoyed and the opportunity to work and to learn more about and help focus and promote the idea of a community college baccalaureate, something that we very much believe in, and we're excited to be involved in this work.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tim. I wanted to give a shout out to our colleague, Angela Kersenbrock, who is here with us today. Angela is the executive director of the CCBA, and she has a long career in Florida community colleges at Seminole State College, and there was a real champion and leader of the creation of many CTE workforce oriented programs, including baccalaureate degrees. Angela led really some of the amazing work that happened around creating, for example, the BSN with 2 other colleges in a consortium, which we actually feature in our ebook. But Angela, we're so glad you're here, and we hope you feel better.
Thank you, Deb. And CCBA is so excited to finally have this program inventory and best practices. This has been, part of really what we've been dreaming about. So thank you for your collaboration. You've just been magnificent, you and Tim, to work with. So thank you.
Thank you. We're glad you're here. So I also want to introduce to you Rosario Torres, who is our program officer at the ECMC Foundation. Rosario has been just an incredible friend, advocate, and support throughout this last year as CCBA really carved out a niche for itself to grow research and development work around the Community College Baccalaureate. As you can see there, Rosario is a graduate of the English education, a BA, and Chicano Latino Studies at California State University, Long Beach, and an MA in higher education from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Being a Midwesterner, I had to like tease her just a little bit about coming to the cold for her master's degree. But Rosie, would you like to say hello to the group?
Yes, hello, good afternoon and good morning to everyone. I am actually located in Los Angeles, which is why I'm saying good morning. And this is perfect timing as well. I apologize, I quickly dropped off my internet, but I just restarted. But it's good to see everyone, and I am just so thrilled to be here with you all. Thank you so much for supporting and attending this important work.
No, thank you, Rosie.
Debra.
Yeah, that's great. And Tim, would you like to introduce our two presidents on the panel?
I would. Our final two panelists are first, Dr. Vicky Wood. Dr. Wood's a first-generation community college graduate. She became the 7th president of Washington State Community College in July of 17. And in this April, that college became one of 3 colleges, which is maybe now 4, possibly, that to earn approval for a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing from the Ohio Department of Higher Education. So one of our new BSN program colleges. We're super excited about that. Prior to assuming her role as president, Vicky was the Dean of Business Information Technologies and Criminal Justice at Marion Technical College, and she also served as Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs and Student Services at Washington State, and we're really thrilled to have you with us, Dr. Wood. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. I'm excited to be here. My first year of my presidency, I had the privilege of attending a Community College Baccalaureate conference to learn about launching baccalaureate programs at community colleges. And we've come a long way in 5 years, so I'm excited to share our story today.
Great, thank you so much. We're thrilled to have you involved in this panel. And our final panelist is Mr. David Sanders. He serves as the president of the new Malcolm X College of School and Health Sciences. He formerly served as Deputy Chief Operating Officer for City Colleges of Chicago as a project team leader with the Reinvention Initiative and as the Auxiliary Services Director for Kennedy King College. So there are several community colleges that are part of the City Colleges system, for those of you who are maybe not be familiar with that. Malcolm X College is one of several community colleges involved in a study examining the potential for community college baccalaureate degree programs in Illinois. And Debra and I are involved in that. So we're super glad to have David and his team there at Malcolm X as one of our pilot sites for exploring the community college baccalaureate supply demand analysis methodology that Debra and I have been working on. So we're very excited for your involvement in that project, David, but also in your work on this panel. So say hi to everyone. We're really glad to have you.
Thanks, Tim, and I'm excited to be here. This is tremendous work and work that our students absolutely need. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation and the panel and the discussion, which I think will be fantastic.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thanks to all the panelists for your involvement today again. And we appreciate you. And so we'd like to go ahead and get into our slides. We have a brief presentation here about, as Debra said earlier, sort of the inventory project and the promising practices. And there we go. We want to give you this kind of an overview of this, kind of set the stage for the discussion about promising practices by sort of setting the table with an overall perspective of what we're doing in this project and how it all fits together. So this first slide, it shows the 3, major project elements in our CCB Promising Practices project. So just to go over those briefly, first, we conducted a national inventory of all CCB conferring states and institutions, and for the first time, an inventory of all CCB degree programs. So we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail, but that inventory involved a lot of work. It involved interviews, web searches, document reviews, and related information that we gathered with state education agency officials and community college practitioners. So I'll share a few results of that inventory element, that first component, in the next few slides. But just to move on in terms of the rest of the components of the project, the second thing, which you'll be hearing a lot more about too, is that we identified, documented, and soon will be disseminating promising practices associated with community college baccalaureate degrees. This element of our work is the main focus of today's webinar, and Debra Bragg will share with you more about how we approached identifying and gathering information about these practices, as well as the results of this promising practice effort in a few minutes. Finally, this third component, we've shared and we will continue to share the results of our inventory and promising practices research. Information gathered throughout the project has been disseminated by the Community College Baccalaureate Association via webinars, newsletters, conferences, and social media to raise awareness, deepen understanding, and promote the scale up of high quality CCB degree programs nationwide. That's the overall goal of this, is to improve these programs and their adoption across the country. So we see these three elements as foundational, each of them foundational to the next, including prior work that took place before this project began that set the stage for our focus on program quality. So the research in prior years on CCB policy development and implementation at the state level, with which you may be familiar, is what enabled us to undertake the national inventory work to identify the institutions and programs that were offering these degrees. And that inventory work in turn set the stage for identification of promising practices. And as you'll see, and these practices that we've identified and the associated practice framework is setting the stage, in our view, for future work on program and practice quality. So we see these kind of building as sort of a pyramid, our foundational research about policy implementation at the state level, and then our inventory work to drill down and understand what's happening at the individual program level, leading us to a better understanding of promising practices, which we hope will lead to an improved framework for program quality development going forward. So we see all this is linked together. So on our next slide, we want to just talk a little bit about the national inventory. So we're extremely pleased with the results of our inventory work, and we're very appreciative for everyone who assisted in this work, and there are many people that are involved in this. The inventory identified, as you can see on this slide, 570 community college baccalaureate degree programs, and those were situated in 148 associate dominant institutions or community colleges across the 25 states. Many of the 570 programs that you see here on this slide included multiple program concentrations. So we're not including those in our count of programs, but since we're really, for purposes of identifying programs, we're just counting those unique degree programs in colleges. But many of them had like subclassification specializations, and if you counted those, you'd be over 700. On next slide, please. So this slide shows or lists, there's two pieces of this slide. Let me explain a second. This slide lists the 25 states in which at least some community colleges are offering the Community College Baccalaureate. In some states, it's a fairly limited number of institutions, and in some states, it's all institutions are authorized to do so, but many may not yet have done so. So, but 25 states allow at least some community colleges to offer the Community College Baccalaureate. The states that you see highlighted here in red took some action in the past year to expand access to CCB within the state. And for example, initial authorization in Arizona, promotion from pilot status to full-scale authorization in California, or expansion of the Community College Baccalaureate to include Bachelor of Science in Nursing in Ohio. Now, the map on the left shows the 23 states and with institutions and programs that are included in our inventory. So please note that while Oregon and Arizona are states with authority granted to colleges to offer the degree, we don't have any examples of implemented programs at this time in our inventory. So that's the difference there. So I think the whole thing shows that this is a moving target, and we expect this inventory of programs to expand substantially even in the coming year. For instance, as you may know, California's global authorization does set a limit of 30 new programs per year, which is a lot in 1 year. So we don't know if they'll hit that target, but that's the limit. So California alone could add another 30 programs per year to the list. And we're seeing a lot of additional programs, as I'll show you in a minute, just in the last few years. Next slide, please. So the CCBA has implemented a website to disseminate the inventory results. And this inventory is accessible via the CCB homepage under resources. And I think I don't know if we've got able to put that link in the chat, but we'll make sure that you can see that. You can search, when you go to this inventory webpage, you can search for programs by state, by institution, or by 2-digit classification instructional program code. So for each program in the inventory, the inventory includes institution name and IPEDS number, the program name and a 6-digit CIP code, and the degree type. Many programs have some additional data elements such as year of approval. And there are, of course, many other things that we would have loved to include about these programs, and perhaps we can in the future, but those are the sort of the core data elements that you're seeing there that we have available through the inventory. And so I would encourage you to go out and look at that. Thank you, Angela. She put in the chat the location of where that's housed. So we encourage you to go out there, explore, find programs that are similar maybe to the ones you're thinking about implementing. Look at what's happening in the different states, the kind of occupations that people are being prepared for. You'll find it very interesting, as I know we have. So now I'd like to spend a couple minutes talking about the new degree programs that we're seeing in the last few years. So the next slide gives a picture of that. Having this inventory allows us to know more about these programs and will help us further expand our research on CCB degrees across the nation. So for instance, we looked at new degree programs implemented since 2017 by instructional program area. These are 2-digit CIP codes that you can see here. So this list includes all the programs from those states that began to authorize programs for the first time during this period, which is, I think, 5 or 6 states, but also many new programs that came online in that period from some of the larger states like Washington, Florida, Texas, Wyoming, et cetera. And so it's the collection of all new states and their programs plus new programs in older states, if you will. So 136 new programs that began during this period. 18% of those are in the business area. That's the single most popular area. Most of these are Bachelor of Applied Science degrees in business management, various versions of that, but basically all business management. They also include degrees like accounting, digital marketing, and applied technical leadership. So there's quite a variety of programs in that category. 16% of the new programs are in computer and information sciences. About 1/3 of these are degrees in cybersecurity. Bachelors of Applied Science, Bachelors of Applied Technology, and Bachelors of Science degrees. And another 1/3 of those computer science degrees are BAS degrees in Information Systems and Technology, which is, I guess, a more general category, but they're BAS, they're applied degrees. So we know that they're occupationally focused degrees. Software applications, software development, and data analytics are also featured in this category. 29%, nearly 30% of all new programs are in healthcare generally, but those are exactly, as it turns out, evenly divided between nursing and all other healthcare degrees. So nursing is predominantly BSN or RN to BSN programs, and the other healthcare programs, the other 20, include BAS programs in dental hygiene, respiratory care, sonography, and healthcare administration, so quite a collection. 10% of the new programs are in education, And that includes BS degrees in teacher education and early childhood education primarily. Well, there's a couple other ones, but those are the primary categories in education. And about 9% of the new programs are in the STEM areas. And those include BAS, or Bachelor of Applied Science programs in electrical engineering, technology, manufacturing technology, microelectronic manufacturing, industrial automation, aerospace, aviation, and molecular bioscience. So quite an interesting collection of STEM degree fields that have been stood up just in the last few years, as I've said. So I won't go through the rest of these, but you can sort of see what some of the other categories are. So what emerges to me from these observations is a picture of CCB program development across the states in response to critical workforce needs in a wide array of occupational fields. So we shouldn't think of, CCB as being just focused on a couple different key occupations. So we tend to talk a lot about nursing, for instance. It's extremely important, but it by no means is the most predominant type of occupation in the category. There's a lot of different programs out there. So what the inventory data does, though, I think, is it sets the stage, or improves the context for understanding of these promising practices that are being used in the programs in the various colleges. So I'd like to now turn and hand this off to Debra to discuss this element of the project.
Wow, thank you, Tim. That was absolutely fabulous. I can't tell you how many times I've had the opportunity to present about community college baccalaureate degree programs over the last several years, and people say, well, can you tell us more about these programs? I mean, this sounds really exciting, but what fields of study are they offered in, and what kind of degrees do they give, and how do the programs really work? We can go to the next slide, Shelley. And so that's what Tim and I and our colleagues have really been working on, is both what are the programs, what are the fields of study. We also know what types of degrees all these programs are awarding, but also how do the programs work? I mean, what's unique about them? What makes them really important, special, and effective for our CCB students? So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about another project that's followed on the heels of the National Inventory. So you can get a sense really of what we've been doing and where we're hoping to go with even more work. So we go to the next slide, that'd be great. So I'm going to start by sharing with you, what do we mean by a promising practice? And then I'm going to kind of back into how did we get here? Because it's one of those things where it took a lot of people, a lot of smart people working together, thinking together about what are we really looking for. So we scoured the literature, we read a lot about promising practices, a lot of frameworks. We read the CCB literature, including, by the way, lots of dissertations, and maybe some of you have written dissertations on this topic. That's one of our major sources of information right now on community college baccalaureate degrees. And we also looked at frameworks like guided pathways and career pathways to inform our work. And so when we did that, this is the definition that we use to solicit information from the field about promising practices that are part of CCB programs. So we consider them critical ingredients. What is the critical ingredient to a high quality CCB program that produces equitable education, employment, and life outcomes for our students and graduates? So we're setting the bar high, and we're really focusing on what is it that makes these programs work. The second part of the definition is really important too. And in the ebook, we talk a little bit about why we use the term promising. And I'm not going to go into a lot about that, but there are reasons we do use this term. And one of the main reasons is we really rely on the expertise, knowledge, and insights of practitioners. So we go to the field, to folks who've implemented programs and ask them to give us your wisdom. Tell us what you think makes a difference. What makes the student outcomes more successful for students. So it's really rooted in this practical experience. We really value both quantitative and qualitative data when we ask folks about their programs and how their students are doing. So that's what we're talking about today. When we show you these promising practices, we have used this to kind of anchor our requests to the field to tell us about your programs and your practices. So we want to recognize, we did identify an advisory council. Angela Kersenbrock really led this effort with Shelley, who is our communications director. They did incredible work helping us think through how we really get a comprehensive representation of folks across this great work. So you'll see on this list folks who are faculty at their colleges, folks who are administrators at colleges. You'll also see state leadership represented here. We have a graduate of one of our programs, and you'll see others who just really had brought a lot of rich expertise to the project. Also, we have a national representation because these programs look pretty different from state to state, and it was really, really important to hear from everyone. This, we can't thank enough this group of people who was really great advisors as we thought through what we're doing. And again, I can't thank them enough for their help. So we want to acknowledge them. So the big reveal, in just a few weeks, CCBA will be releasing our ebook. And this is where you're getting a preview of the cover of the CCBA's ebook called 20 Promising Practices to Advance Quality, Equity, and Success in Community College Baccalaureate Degree Programs. A real labor of love, and with lots of folks who are members of CCBA. We're integrally involved in identifying and providing the documentation, the description, and that evaluation that we needed to understand what makes these programs successful. So we're super happy about that. I also want to acknowledge at this time Tammy Napiantek, who is at Big Bend Community College, and Ellen Wasserman, and I can't remember, Ellen, your college in New York. Type it in the chat so we we know. And of course, Angela Kersenbrock. There are many others, as Tim said, who have been involved in this work, but we really want to shout out. Westchester, I apologize, Ellen. Got to get your college in there too. So anyway, this is the cover. The next slide shows you the table of contents. So the other thing is really super cool. We are using photos from the colleges. So you'll get to see our CCBA members and students and graduates throughout the book, which is super exciting. And this is Todd Farmer, who's a new member of our board at Weatherford College in Texas. So that's kind of cool. You can see the table of contents here. We do talk about what do we mean by a promising practice. How did our project go about identifying these promising practices? And that methodology is documented there, and we'll let you read about that later. But what I want to say is that we were really pleased with the nominations that we received. A lot of these nominations we received at our annual conference, although we did have different mechanisms for gathering nominations once the project started. But the real gem was the survey that we conducted at our annual conference. So if you were there, you are probably someone who may have given us a nomination, and we want to thank you for that. We took all of those nominations and we looked for commonalities, kind of common threads in those. And we compared them to the frameworks that we were looking at that others have used to name promising practices. And so in doing that effort, I do want to say, I think it's interesting, of the 78 nominations, 50 of them came from practitioners who are currently implementing programs. So already underway, they're telling us this is what we think really makes a difference. The other 28 nominations actually came from folks who haven't yet implemented programs, but want to implement programs. And their input was more around, what would you like to know about? You know, what would help you if you knew about this practice? So we had kind of both sides of the coin when we were looking at promising practices. And that's really what guided us in identifying these first 20 promising practices. These are really ones that bubbled up to the top. A lot of folks said they'd like to know more about them or maybe nominated them. It was a hard decision to pick the first 20. But the good news is that there's a lot of folks who still have a story to tell. And this project is continuing. So we intend to reach out and to continue to gather more information as CCBA continues its work to document programs and promising practices. I'm going to give you a peek preview here, and there's way too much to talk about all of these. But I will highlight the 6 major categories as you skim this slide so you can see what's here. The first category is about leadership and organizational support. As you know, it won't be surprising to all of you that this is an organizational change, and it requires all folks contribute, and it is really an organizational initiative. And so thinking through how that works and how to bring people together to make this happen, that is what we feature in the first theme. The second theme, access, equity, and outcomes, is really threaded through almost all of these promising practices. But we wanted to highlight 4 of the practices that really center around equity and what equity means in the context of community college baccalaureate programs. There's just some incredible insights from practitioners in this part of the book. The third part is about pathway design. And so what we mean by pathway design is that the programs are intentionally designed to be part of a pathway that leads to living wage employment, progression in careers, and graduate education. So they're not sort of a one and done program. The practitioners are telling us, here's what we are doing to think about pathways for our students over their careers, over their lifetime. What does that look like? So there's some really cool ideas there, including competency-based education. The fourth area is around curriculum and instruction. We got a lot of nominations in this area and the next area around student supports. These were probably the 2 biggest areas. So there's a lot of good ideas around curriculum and instruction there that you want to look at. And then student support. So we know that complementing, really strong curriculum instruction with student supports is so critical to student success. And that's what we see here. And we have some really great examples of practices in this area. And then our final area is employer to be employer partnerships. We'll have to catch that, make that change. But we're featuring Mentors in Tech, which was actually the webinar that Tim Harmon led in May. If you have not seen that, it is a really great discussion of Mentors in Tech at Green River College. And then the really cool Google tracker that Joyce Hammer has brought to our attention at Centralia College, where they document where their teachers are going to work and keep track of those folks so they know what's happening in the classroom. So these are all really cool. We can't wait to get them out to you. We expect the book to come out in about 2 weeks. And Angela and Shelley will make sure you know about it, and everyone else in our orbit. In the book, we talk about some of the lessons we feel we've learned, and these are the 4 big categories. So looking across all of those, we talk a little bit about the importance of equity-minded practitioners who are really making decisions and doing this work with students and how critical they are. We talk about this pathway design, and I mentioned that really before. So the pathway design is really critical to getting students to these CTE-focused baccalaureate degrees and beyond. We talk about employer engaged partners, and because many of the practices, I should have said, talk about their employer partners. So you'll see that as you read through. And then finally, what does this mean for communities to be able to offer programs where students who live and work and raise families in communities where we really need baccalaureate trained people? What does it mean to a community to accomplish that? So that's the lessons learned. There's some discussion there. And then the next slide is the very last section that talks about what's next. So we do intend, I know CCBA, its board, its leadership under Angela intends to continue to do this work. There will be continuing work to gather promising practices, and we hope link them up to the inventory online, so you can also search for these. We have a really exciting potential project coming up that's going to delve into quality. What does it really mean to be a quality, high quality, high value, equitable CCB degree program? And we're going to really engage in that. And some of the folks leading that are here, and I'll let them speak up if they want to. And if not, that'll be a big surprise. And then finally, all of this is just helping us learn more about what it takes to scale up these degree programs. While 25 states have something, 25 states don't. So there is still opportunity to scale up these programs and really inform the country about these opportunities that we have ahead of us. So thank you so much for letting me share a little bit about this. And we're going to turn to our panel to make some comments. All right, so our discussion with Dr. Wood, Mr. Sanders, and Ms. Torres, who have joined us. We're really happy that you've joined us. And we'd like to kick this off by asking first Dr. Wood and then President Sanders, would you tell us a little bit about your journey, your college's journey, and where are you in this work?
Yes, thank you, Deborah. I first will talk about our journey in Ohio. We started this many years ago, and in 2016, we received legislative approval to offer applied baccalaureate degrees at community colleges. Of course, there were a lot of parameters around what would be approved. We continued to push the need for the BSN, and we're happy to say that just a few months ago, it was approved through our legislature in the budget bill to allow community colleges to offer BSNs. Washington State Community College was one that gave testimony in support of this. Of course, it has been working with the Ohio Association of Community Colleges in advocacy for this work. And so we were happy that we finally have that approved. As of now, 4 community colleges in Ohio have been approved to offer the BSN. And we're all in the process of going to Higher Learning Commission now for approval. One of the approaches that we used at the state level was for all 23 community colleges to come together as we promoted this advocacy and the need. And it worked well back in 2016 when we first were approved, and then again this year as we pushed the BSN. One thing that we also, or another thing that we used was statistics, of course. The Institute for the BSN, the Institute of Medicine, had set the standard of 80% of nurses having BSNs by 2020. So we pulled the state data. We looked at the number of job openings across the state. We saw that only 57% of Ohio nurses hold the BSN. And a point that really helped me with Washington State is in Southeast Ohio, that's as low as 18%. So we really used your promising practice of access, equity, and outcomes to push this for approval, because we know that in Southeast Ohio, access is limited. And really from an equity standpoint, our own college data, we see that really the students, our associate degree nursing graduates that want to go on, only 17% have gone on, and that's mostly the traditional student demographic. So it really is difficult for our adult learner age 25 and older. So we use these data points in our advocacy at the state level. Another thing that we did was really promote, again, another one of your best practices, the pathway design, because we already have really strong pathways where students can enroll and get their STNA, then their LPN, then their ADN. So we already have pathways. This is just adding the next step to those pathways, stackable credentials. Another thing that we've done that aligns well with your practices from a curriculum and instruction standpoint is that we've worked well with our workforce partner, and we've redesigned the program. Not only do we offer stackable certificates, but we get students through one semester a skill set that gets them employed. So along with our healthcare partner, we are getting our students through one semester. Then they have the opportunity to apply for a position, a patient care technician. We've designed our program into a 2-day-a-week model so that the students can work at the hospital 3 days a week while going through their associate degree nursing program. If for some reason a student has to stop out or drop out, they maintain their employment at the hospital. And we've seen that they often will come back in and pick up where they left off. So from an instruction curriculum standpoint, student support, we've had support from the hospital to hire success coaches, because we can show that with a success coach to do tutoring, mentoring, helping students overcome barriers, we are going to produce more graduates. So that is a strategy we've used from the student standpoint, the student support standpoint. But most importantly, at the state advocacy level, at the community level, it is our partnerships with our employers and letting the employer's voice speak. The number of BSNs that they need, the reason they need those, and we used the workforce need, the employer's voice through all of our work in Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vicky. Really appreciate hearing how you've been able to weave into your program design. Unbeknownst to you and us, you were doing what we are now sharing. So very cool. President Sanders, anxious to hear from you.
Thank you, Debra, and certainly we appreciate this opportunity. You know, in Illinois, we're aspirational, and we've been trying to get baccalaureates in community colleges for several years now. And I must admit, at one point we were a little disheartened and wondering whether or not there was an opportunity here But I gotta thank Angela Kersenbrock, Dr. Angela Kersenbrock, the conference that Jim Reed and I went to this year was absolutely amazing, and it outlined the pathway to success and the fact that we were really in a good position right now. And then coming back and working with Debra and Tim has just enthused us and gotten us prepared for that tremendous opportunity. Just like Dr. Wood, there are components of promising practices that we absolutely have to utilize, right? And we know that that's absolutely essential for us to be able to convey the benefits, the opportunity, and alleviate some of the fear that's within the state of community colleges having baccalaureate degrees and not having a negative impact on our four-year partners. And so we are devising a plan to really address each of those components. It is essential. It's absolutely necessary. Here in the city of Chicago, we have a lot of tremendous programs that are going on, but there are tremendous equity issues. There are some access issues for four-year universities here in the city of Chicago, believe it or not. There are tremendous opportunities for us to address areas that our four-year partners just don't have the capacity to support, and that is needed so that we are reflective of the communities that we're serving, and we're ensuring that students have a pathway to success. Many of our students don't have the wherewithal to be able to go to a four-year university. They don't have the financial wherewithal to be able to do that. And it is essential that we build that bridge and that opportunity. And so all the promising practices that have already been outlined, from access, equity and outcome, to the pathway designs, to curriculum, instruction, student supports, and partnerships, are going to be essential for us. And those are the elements that we are working right now to develop and put together, that I think is going to have a reverberating effect within the state of Illinois across all of our cities, whether they're urban or rural, and we're excited about that opportunity.
I'm excited listening to you talk about this, David. I get it's like, yes, we can do this, and we will. I like it. This is great. But if you don't mind, I'm going to stick with you and ask you a question about the program inventory work, and what you think about that, and whether or not you think that'd be helpful to you and other community college leaders that are considering implementing new CCB degrees. And I'll have the same question for you as well, Vicky. Just would like you both to kind of reflect on the inventory and your perspective on it.
Yeah, I think the program inventory is outstanding because it gives us evidence-based practices that are already in place that we can utilize to convey this tremendous benefit to the state, and again, alleviate the concerns that our four-year partners have. It also serves as models for what is possible, right? It gives us that tremendous opportunity to look at what has already been done, build off of that, and ensure that people can see something that's tangible, substantive, that's already happening, and compare it and utilize that as justification for moving forward with programs here in Illinois. We already know that BSN is a much needed profession that's within the United States overall. It is estimated that we'll have a million nurse shortage by 2025, if it's not already there. And I believe that we, community colleges, have a tremendous opportunity to add to the number of students that are coming through our pipelines and can go into the medical system and really serve the diverse populations, like in the city of Chicago, that our medical networks are serving right now.
Thanks, that's great, I appreciate it. Yeah.
In terms of the inventory, I think it's going to be a wonderful tool, especially for those colleges that are just starting down this path. Again, I go back to the CCBA conference I attended, and I learned how difficult it was, in particular, to get the BSN, how many years it took in Florida to make that happen. But I really didn't have a person to connect with. And so now not only can I see which colleges are offering this, but I can connect with people at those colleges early in the process to learn, just like we're sharing here today, how they made that happen. So I think it's going to be a wonderful tool. I know that my team has already just this week talked with Dr. Kersenbrock, and it was very reassuring that the work that we're doing seems to be right on path with what she did in Florida when she and her collaborative made this work there. So it's a way of bringing practitioners together in this work. So thank you for putting that together, and I look forward to using it in the future as well.
Well, thank you for your words there, and we're certainly hopeful that colleges out there across the country that are in states that authorize CCB, as well as those that don't yet, will be able to use these, this new tool, both the inventory and promising practices, to help them, become more informed about what the options might be and who to talk to about, if they have a program idea that they'd like to stand up in their community.
Mhm. This has been great. We're interested too in your insights around that set of practices. We know that we're just starting, so lots more potential. And we're curious if there are practices that you'd like to see us make sure that we include in future descriptions of promising practices and future dissemination by CCBA. Vicky, maybe we'll start with you. You have just gotten approval for this exciting new BSN program, and so your folks have thought a lot about this. Are there practices that you think about employing or implementing that you'd like to know more about?
Some of the strategies that we have used here is one, of course, to communicate the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we changing our mission? Why? Because there is resistance in some cases when you look at moving in this direction. So that was one thing. Identifying change champions, because you have to have those people that believe in the idea, that are willing to pull the other people in our institution along, and really the transition team to help us through this process. It's lengthy because we're changing registration, financial aid, the transcript, every aspect of the institution is going to change when we begin offering a baccalaureate. So we had some institutions that really helped us in thinking that through and looking at the big picture. I think another best practice is just, again, your inventory is going to let you connect where we can have our team connect with another college that's been through this. That's been extremely valuable to us.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Great.
And President Sanders, are there practices you'd like to know more about that maybe we haven't covered yet?
Well, I'm looking at many of the practices that are already there. And obviously, we're aspirational, trying to get there. And the accelerated baccalaureate pathway is one of those that you are already illustrating that would be tremendous for us. It's an opportunity for our students to really achieve their objectives in a shorter time frame. And that is critical for them. It also can add, obviously, to the capacity in respective disciplines that are absolutely needed here in the city of Chicago, state of Illinois, and potentially across the country. So we're looking at programs like that. But I think as we begin to explore this, we're going to find a number of different opportunities. And I think, the work that you and Tim have done is going to allow us to be able to convey that in a tangible way with, again, evidence that it has the potential to work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We hope we can deliver. I'm seeing a question. I'm going to interject. Please go ahead and ask questions in the chat for our two president panelists, for Rosario Torres, who we're going to put on the spot here in just a short time to get her feedback on all of this. But I do see a question from Elizabeth Meza, who's a colleague at University of Washington and deeply involved in research about what's especially important to rural areas. I'd be interested in what, Tim, as well as I'll call on Tammy at Napier Tech, one of our co-authors, is working on CCBs at Big Bend Community College in a rural areas. So I'd be curious if she wants to hop on here a little bit. But I think we weren't thinking of sort of segmenting practices right now by geography, but I think that's a really important way to go. I pulled up the list and I do see rural colleges that are featured in our promising practices, but it's a really good point to really analyze the data a little bit more according to geography. But I have to admit, we're still sort of getting into this work and probably need more nominations to really look at that. Of course, Washington State Community College, where Dr. Wood is located in Appalachia and is quite, I think, a rural region. And Vicky, you might have some thoughts to comment on that too.
Absolutely, we are. And that is, I think, one really important factor that helped us get this legislation passed, because there's such a limit in opportunity. If for, in particular, again, adult learners that do not want to take online programs to get baccalaureate degrees, there are no options here. So that was a big selling point in our advocacy work. And truly, from an equity lens, and our graduates from this institution, the traditional age, they have more opportunity to go on, but our adults do not have those opportunities. If they don't want online. So
yeah, and in rural regions, it's very, very clear. Although I will say, as President Sanders said, I live in the city of Chicago. We have our own deserts in the city as well, which is quite amazing that a city as big as Chicago, we still have access and equity issues. I want to call on Joyce Hammer. Joyce did a whole session on rural CCB degrees. I wondered if she might want to just, Joyce, I know you are doing this work. Any comments you have about rural settings?
Well, yes, I do this session. If anybody is interested in some of our PowerPoint information slides, please let me know and I'd be glad to send those. But it is some of these states that are interested now in offering applied baccalaureate degrees. Some of the loudest voices are our rural colleges, because they are so far away from opportunity for students to engage with the university. And so they're really recognizing that to keep students close to home, and particularly those place-bound, is really important. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, some of these colleges, I was at a college in Montana recently, and they're having to partner with online universities online that aren't from their state to provide that opportunity. And they would love to be able to have students continue their educational pathway at the college.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Joyce. It's good to hear somebody's, really deeply involved in this and thinking about that every day. We also have a few other comments about rural BAS degrees versus BS degrees. Joan Fisher asked, why choose a BAS in business if a BS in business is an option? I'm not sure where you're located, Joan, so feel free to hop on. Sometimes states won't allow the BS, so they dictate the BAS degree for all of their degrees except maybe the BSN. So that could be one reason that a college has chosen the BAS rather than BS. It's because of how the state authorizes the degrees. But feel free to jump on to clarify, Joan, if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, we're over in Arizona. We don't have those restrictions, but I've been reading all of your programs. And I'm noticing just a collection of different items. And I was wondering if that was the only rationale, was just not being allowed to do that, or if there are other reasons that you found.
Gosh, that's a great question. And there could be somebody on this webinar who wants to jump in and talk about a decision about the degree type for a particular program.
In Florida, you know, legislatively, it didn't say whether it had to be a BAS or a BS. And initially, everyone was writing BAS degrees. And then we started writing Bachelor of Science degrees. And so there really wasn't a reason. I think people were just thinking that's what they had to do at that point in time. Because it was easier to get those through to their local university's approval than the BAS degree. But I think pretty much now in Florida, every new degree is a BS unless it's intentionally designed as a BAS degree. So I think Deb is absolutely right. It matters how the legislation is written, and also depending upon the degree. So and how the degrees are structured within your state. So if it's a bachelor's in business, in your state, it might be that the student needs a set of, like in Florida, 7 courses like statistics, calculus, and others. And it might be your college's decision that that's not what you want to include in your business degree. So then it has to be a BAS.
Well, that's a great point. Well, I want to thank Dr. Wood and President Sanders for their comments and encourage you to continue. But I want to turn it over to Tim Harmon to chat with Rosario just a little bit about her leadership and involvement, and looking forward to hearing from her. I hope she's still with us.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And we didn't want to let you.
Can you hear me okay? My internet has been unstable. Okay,
You're great. You're great. And we didn't want to let you escape without an opportunity to get your perspective on this. Obviously, there are a lot of projects that, come your way. And so we're just interested in what your thoughts are about why, this work has been worthy of ECMC support, and what is it about, the promising practices that led you to support it? And then I guess I would sort of add to that, what insights might you have, just about how we could better connect, our work on CCBs with other, important projects on career readiness, because that's a focus of yours, we know.
Yeah, certainly. We're very proud to support this project. We know that, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but we know that higher education is really experiencing just such a critical and unprecedented time. And so we see this as an opportunity to do things and invest in projects that are innovative and growing and that need a lot of support, especially as they are fast growing and scaling. And in terms of, our support for this project, we see this as an opportunity to really assist very critical gaps in the local labor force in order to prepare individuals for jobs in very specific industries. We've been talking about the nursing programs, information technology, cybersecurity programs, where universities, typically do not offer training or provide, enough graduates to really meet those demands. And so we know that, CCBA is really committed to ensuring that those students, especially those from underserved backgrounds, have the opportunity to achieve economic security through direct access to those high quality CCB programs. And so this is how the promising practices work is so important, to be able to document and see, what other programs are doing and to be able to scale those practices as well. And so we know that, for community colleges, they play such an important and critical role in their local communities. And they have a great potential to really serve as engines of upward social mobility, because they are oftentimes the first entry point to higher education for so many of the students that we care about. And so these current times are really, they really beg the opportunity to really reimagine what career pathways can look like, to be able to result in large systemic and equitable reforms. And this is really imperative to ECMC Foundation, whose mission is really to be able to inspire and to facilitate improvements that do lead to improved educational outcomes in terms of persistence and completion, especially for underserved populations.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate your perspective on that. And, if we, we've been talking in the last few days about, the what, the where, the why, and the who of all this work. And so if we think of, inventory, program inventory maybe gives us a pretty good window into the what, who's, what's being done, what kinds of programs of study are being offered out there. And as we learn more about that, it helps us garner insights into how these programs are responding to unmet workforce needs. And then the promising practices, it seems to us, gives us a good perspective on some of the components, at least, of how do we make this happen for students? What kinds of practices make the most sense in terms of helping students come into these programs and be successful? So we're learning more about that component. And we still feel like we have a lot of more work to do in the for whom component. Like, are these programs really we can talk about the program stealing a little bit from tomorrow's discussion. We talk about do the programs respond to these critical workforce needs, but do they also respond to these critical unmet access needs? And we see that as being, sort of two equally important components of why these programs exist. And so understanding if these programs are delivering on the goal of, reaching the needs of working students, of minoritized students, of rural students, of low-income students that otherwise would not have access to baccalaureate education because of income and discrimination or the existing education deserts, et cetera. So learning more about, it was interesting when you were talking about the location of these programs and what, where are they? We really need to learn more about how that's happening and which programs are responding, are in a baccalaureate education desert, and which are responding to other kinds of access challenges. And that I think having that dimension on who's doing what for who would be a really helpful part of this as well. So we very much appreciate your interest and support in this work and hope that we can obviously continue it as we go forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosie. I'm going to turn it over to Angela, who's going to close us out here.
Well, thank you, Deb and Tim and Vicky and David and Rosie for another great webinar. It seems like every time we do a webinar, it's better than the last. And I'm always so impressed with all the partners that we have that are so committed and professional and competent. I mean, it's a humbling experience. I also want to thank Rosie. ECMC's been a huge supporter, and so thank you, Rosie. And Joyce Foundation has also been a great supporter. Bragg Associates. We're laying the foundation. It's not enough, and we talk about this at the board all the time. It's not enough that we're offering community college baccalaureate degrees. What is enough is that we're offering quality, very high quality baccalaureate degrees that lead to family sustaining wages. So the numbers are important, but what's important to each one of those starfish is that we do a great job and they go out and they get careers that they can continue to advance in. And so we have so many plans. The promising practices and the program inventory have laid a great foundation. We have a lot more work to do, but I think we've come a long way. And Deb, your support has been, just incredible. I also want to give a shout out. You heard two presidents today talk about the value of the conference. And I'm so glad that David said that, because I felt like I was stalking him last year at the League of Innovation to come to our conference. So I'm so glad that he did come this year and found value in it. One of the things that we work really hard at is making sure that if you come to our conference, that you'll walk away knowing more and having connected with more people and be able to go home and do an even better job than you're doing now. So if you have the wherewithal, meet us at Palm Springs in next February. And then as we go forward, we'll be doing more projects. And if you have interest in joining with us, please let us know. We are really a practitioner-driven, research-informed organization that is, like all of you, trying to make a big difference in this world. So thank you all.